Good. It still works. The whole place is gonna blow. We must return to Junks via the central factory.
Let's go!
Dunban, what about Egil?
He'll fight Zanza to the very end. But we have our part of the bargain. Once he's gone, we're the only ones left. Let's move, everyone!
Goodbye, my brother.
Yeah, so a lot of stuff kind of happened there. So this plot twist has kind of been hinted at throughout the entire game, and it is done so brilliantly. Like, there's sometimes where there could be like plot twists in a story where it's like that's out of nowhere and like where the heck did that come from? But in this game it's hinted at through the entire thing. Like, there's all these little tiny little things that you don't think are important throughout the story but actually turn out to be the most important stuff. Like, I was talking earlier about that scene after Colony 9 where Shulk is like, in my head there are two versions of me. One of them is telling me, listen to what Dunban said. The other one's saying, destroy them all, like, get revenge, they all must die, stuff like that. That's Zanza as part of him. That's literally the part of him that's Zanza. And this explains a lot of things, like the flashback that happens at the beginning of chapter 2 of this series where it shows Dixon discovering Shulk on Black Mountain. So, Shulk's whole group, like with his family and stuff like that were going on that expedition, and they wound up finding the Monado. Zanza, who is the Monado, in order to like perpetuate his existence and like strengthen himself, he sucked the lives from all of the people on the expedition, including Shulk. So Zanza was the one who already killed Shulk before, and Shulk's parents and everyone else that was with them. And then he was like, which one of these characters should I possess to grow with the Monado and be a good character to do that? And there's so many stories where it's like, oh, you're the chosen one, like you've been chosen for some reason or another. Why was Shulk the chosen one here? Because eeny, meeny, miny, mo, you're the one that seems like you can like have some growth with the sword and just swing the sword around. And Zanza must have sent out a signal to Dixon, and Dixon, who's a disciple of Zanza, came down to Black Mountain to discover Shulk, brought Shulk back to Colony 9, and then Dixon was the one who was like, hey Shulk, you should be doing research on the Monado. And Dixon was the one who was going to the Fallen Arm with a Machina to get like more notes to help Shulk with his Monado research, and he's the one that was pushing Shulk to be wielding the Monado the whole time, because he knew that Shulk really had Zanza within him and wanted him to be able to realize that he's a wielder of the Monado, all for this day here. And now it's starting to explain like so many things, like the dreams that he's been having. Like when he fell onto the Fallen Arm, he's like, it's the same dream again. I haven't had this dream in a while. I reached out for a piece of scrap metal, and then I fell into the ground, and as he's falling into the ground, he sees the other younger version of himself standing over the hole, staring at him as he falls into this hole in the dream. And now I finally understand the significance of that dream I didn't on previous playthroughs. Him falling into the hole is him dying and being killed by Zanza, and that other young Shulk that's standing over the hole watching it happen is the representation of Zanza watching as it happens and just like killing him and using him as his own vessel. And that scene with the other one with the younger Shulk, where they're in the Black Mountain like kind of chamber there that usually has the Monado, and Shulk's standing there in like all his winter gear, like when he originally appeared there with his family and stuff like that, only for the other younger Shulk to appear there and be like, you can't be here. Not anymore. That's Zanza saying, you can't wield the Monado anymore. That's going back to being my sword. Your time's up, bud. You're gonna go back to being dead. You can't be here anymore. You can't wield the Monado anymore. That's why the Monado's gone. It's going back to Zanza. But yeah, so there's so many hints along the story like that just hint towards this ultimate ending. Or the fact that Shulk was getting zapped before the Apocrypha there. Like, Dunban, he would be getting shocked by, like, all the electricity by wielding the Monado to show that he wasn't, like, the true wielder of the Monado. Like, he had the determination to use it, which is why you could use it in the first place, because the Monado bends to the user's will. So, similar to how Alvis was able to wield the Monado, Dunban willed it, and so it was so. But that didn't change the fact that, like, Zanza didn't accept him as his true like vessel, because that sword is Zanza, and Dunban isn't Zanza. Shulk was Zanza technically, and that's why he was able to wield the Monado, but Dunban wasn't. But that just also emphasizes how badass Dunban is, how much of a will he had to wield that sword, you know? That's like, Shulk was able to wield the Monado because he was Zanza. Dunban was able to wield the Monado because he's a freaking badass. But he was getting all those zaps by the Monado there because he wasn't like the real wielder of it. And Shulk was always able to wield the Monado without him losing control and was able to have these visions because Zanza was living inside him, was using him as like a vessel for his spirit to not like dissipate, for him to like live in, all for this day that he'd finally be unleashed back onto the world again after Shulk had done all this work for him of defeating Egil and like all the Mechon and stuff like that. So there's that hint of Shulk getting zapped as well as they're approaching the Apocrypha, which really ties into the fact that Zanza's getting ready to take back his own sword, and that's not Shulk's anymore. So, yeah. Harmonia, thank you for streaming this game, even though we're nowhere near complete with this fucking masterpiece. Thank you for showing me this art. I'm happy. I'm very happy. Now, if you ever asked what your favorite streamer is, this is absolutely not second thought. This channel, awesome. Thanks so much, Han. Yeah, this is the story of Xenoblade Chronicles 1 is my favorite story is PMD2, but when it comes to all the stories that I've seen in a game, this is the highest quality story I've ever seen in any game, like ever, is Xenoblade 1. Like, PMD2 is my favorite story just because it had the most personal effect on me, and it's like so touching, it's such like a spirit healing game. But when it comes to the highest quality story, it's Xenoblade Chronicles 1. Like, this is even better than any movie that I've ever seen. And I haven't read books in a while. I used to be an avid book reader more in like early high school to like junior high, stuff like that. I used to read quite a few books. I don't as much anymore, but this is better than any book that I've read. I'm gonna be honest. I've read some really good books before. Anybody ever read The Inheritance Cycle? That series is so freaking good. But now you want to reboot more than ever? Like, now, I know, right? Also, now we can't use Shulk because Shulk is busy being back in the freaking land of the dead. So let's play as Fiora for a little bit and, like, level up her arts. Wait, do I have any new arts here? Grants double attack opportunity, I don't know. Well, there's no point using freaking Mechon destroying stuff anymore. Priority from attack to defense. Final cross. Release a massive ether wave to annihilate enemies. That sounds really cool. That's a really long cooldown though. Jeebus. Yeah, the cooldown of it is a bit too long for my taste, I think. But yeah, favorite book you've read within the past 3 years, The Outsiders Rules. I read Holes a long time ago. I don't remember much about it. Dang, I don't have any arts manuals for Fiora here. Oh, that sucks. These arts are gonna be really weak, but whatever. Let's do it. Let's do it, man. But yeah, I haven't read a lot of books in a long time, but there are some really good books out there. I want to get into more books one day. But yeah, imagine if this was a book series, Xenoblade 1. Like, the story of Xenoblade 1 on its own could be several books. Or imagine if it was like a movie trilogy. Like, the first movie would go up until Prison Island when like Shulk releases the Monado and there's like, oh, like plot twist, Fiora's still alive at Prison Island. And then second movie would go up to like this point where it's like, hey, another plot twist, Shulk is dead, Zanza's released. And then the third movie would be like everything that follows from here. Like, Xenoblade Chronicles would be such an incredible movie trilogy. Like, the story of this one game here could easily be 3 movies. That'd be so incredible. Also, let's see here. Yeah, I'll be using Fiora as my main attacker for right now. Let's actually have a look here. Let's make her like my new Shulk, I guess. Yeah, that's fine. Let's see if we can actually put on some new stuff here. Sure. That looks freaking ridiculous though. I don't like it. Maybe I'm just gonna stick with standard because everything here looks freaking ugly. I don't want the glasses. It's all ugly. That really takes down my physical defense. Like, I don't really have a lot on Fiora here, do I? Oh, that just looks like standard. The Xenoblade's endgame, that would be incredible. Alright, I guess we're gonna be Fiora for a little bit then. What can I put on for a gem here? Geez, but yeah, now we're starting to approach the end then. I could put on a strength up 4 to buff that up a bit. Or like maybe an HP up or something like that. Because yeah, that buffs up my HP by a lot. Yeah, that's basically what it is. Or like Mr. Egil, I don't feel so good. And he gets shot by Dixon. Anyway, let's head out of here then. Okay, I guess I didn't need to turn off the camera yet. Alright, we have to get out of the Mechon here, considering, you know, the Bionis is actually awakened now. And considering the Bionis probably wants to destroy the Mechon, it is probably within our best interest to skedaddle out of the Mechon as soon as we can, you know? That is probably a good idea. But yeah, so Shulk is very similar to both, like, Rex from Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and to Tiz from Bravely Default. Because, like, Shulk has been dead the entire game. He was dead before his journey even started. Like, before the game even started. Because Zanza killed him and started possessing him just by being like, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, you're the one who can wield a sword. And I love how this story develops like that. Like, there's so many stories where it's like, oh, you're the chosen one. You're the only one who can wield this sword that's, like, complete good. Like taking Legend of Zelda, for example, with Link. Like, oh, Link has the spirit of the hero. He's the only one that can wield this sword that's all good. And that's the way that Xenoblade Chronicles pushes it to at first. It's like, oh, Shulk's the only one who can wield the Monado, which is like the one thing that can like slice through Mechon armor with ease. So he's like the one chosen one. And like there are characters that say this, like Rain's like, wow, I think you were the one that was chosen by the Monado. And yep, it's true, he was chosen by the Monado. He was the one who was chosen by Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo to get screwed over and died and killed. Yep, don't you just love that? Because there's too many plots that are just like, oh, you're the chosen one just because, whereas this game is like, yep, Shulk's the chosen one because of random choice. And he's the chosen one to come back alive for a short time to serve Zanza's needs, and then just to be killed again by Dixon. For Zanza to come back to being released and stuff. But yeah, if Zanza was somehow involved with Shulk's moveset, that would also be like spoilers for Xenoblade as well though. Like they don't even include the Monado 2 in Smash Bros, which is what Shulk was wielding like this whole time, which obviously he'll never be able to wield again, considering Zanza now has it, and it's now the Monado 3, which is a very, very evil looking sword. But yeah, maybe a Final Smash, I don't know, something is definitely super important to have representations, but why would Zanza help Shulk in like Shulk's Final Smash? Zanza doesn't like Shulk. Mostly. Zanza's just like, hey, here's a freaking dude to exploit and kill. You know? Also, there's also a few questions that are raised where it's like, oh, some people have brought into question, how is Zanza possessing Shulk if he was also possessing Argalus on Prison Island? Because if you remember, on Prison Island there was Argalus, who was basically the spirit of Zanza, who we released, and he was able to unlock the true power of the Monado. So like Argalus was like the last person that he possessed, like the spirit, like the giant there. So it seems like part of his spirit was there and part of his spirit was with the Monado, because part of his spirit has to be with the Monado. He is the sword. It's like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 with blades. So like, if you know with blades, the blades of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 literally are the weapons that they, like, give to their drivers. Like, they're the embodiment of those weapons. So, like, Pyra, for example, she is the Aegis sword. Like, same with Mithra, with the white Aegis sword. She is that sword. So it's the same thing with Xenoblade Chronicles 1 here. Zanza is the Monado. The Monado is Zanza. The two are one and the same. And it's the same thing with Meyneth. She was her Monado that was originally on Fiora's chest there. And that's also a really interesting connection between Xenoblade 1 and Xenoblade 2. In Xenoblade 1, oh, all the characters are fighting on their own and they're using their arts. In Xenoblade 2, all the characters are fighting with their blades and using arts that are from their blades. But there are no blades in Xenoblade Chronicles 1. And that's what you think until this point. But turns out, blades and drivers do exist in Xenoblade Chronicles 1. Zanza was Shulk's blade. He was the sword. He was the Monado. Shulk was his driver, getting like his power from Zanza. Fiora was Meyneth's driver, with Meyneth being her blade, you know, and granting her that power from the Monado. So drivers and blades, while at first they seem like they only exist in Xenoblade 2, they exist in Xenoblade 1 as well, at least with the Monados, you know? Because Zanza quite literally is a blade. He is the Monado. He was granting that power to Shulk, and same with Meyneth. She was that Monado. She was granting that power to Fiora. So blades and drivers, in a way, do exist in Xenoblade Chronicles 1. Well, time to fly off. Looks like it's all over. Yep, I know even though I wasn't there. Want to thank you for what you did for my son. But we have to escape here first. Shall we go back to the village? Yes, let's go back to the village here.
stubborn mortals. So desperate to cling to your pathetic lives, even when there is no hope for you! Don't you ever give up!
Never. But hear this, Zanza. They will judge me not in life, but death. For both our worlds, you must succeed. Lady Maynard.
The Mechon! Egil!
Look starboard! What's that cloud?
It's Telethia!
You're not getting away!
Dixon!
Listen, it's over. Time for you all to return to the Bionis. Nice and quietly.
That's enough! Why, Dixon? What made you like this? Shulk looked up to you, respected you!
Dixon! Don't let Zanza control you! Wake up!
You can quit your belly aching. I'm in total control. I've always been like this. Ever since long before any of you lot were born.
Before we were born?
Now you get it. It's just like Egil said. I'm Lord Zanza's disciple. Dixon of the Trinity!
Well, time for a Telethia boss battle then. Serenity Telethia. Well, let's hope we don't get wrecked by the Telethia then. Alright, so Fiora will be like my new Shulk for now. Hopefully she isn't too underpowered since I don't have any arts manuals. So there's kind of a lot to cover at once here. I don't even know what I can be discussing right now because there's literally too much that has just happened at once, you know? It's like, what even can I talk about? There's too many things that happened, you know? Well, let's grant regenerate here. Looks like Dunban's using Blossom Dance. Alright, that didn't really do much against Dunban there, did it? Sweet. Alrighty, let's get behind here. Man, it's difficult to navigate around this Telethia. My oh my. Now, this is the Telethia where the boss fight actually ends, like, once you get, like, halfway through its health. And so if you start a chain attack and do more than, like, through halfway of its health of damage, then it'll just keep living and stay at half health. So this is a boss fight that people doing New Game Plus actually use to practice their chain attacks, since this is, like, the only kind of, like, one of the few bosses where you can actually do, like, basically infinite damage to, because, like, it just stops taking damage for real on its health bar eventually. And yeah, use Soul Read, so now, because if you remember, Telethia can read your mind, as we learned earlier in the game. And we don't exactly have Shulk with Minato Purge to stop that. So all of our attacks are missing because the Telethia is reading our mind and,
We're not getting anywhere.
you know, seeing all our attacks before they happen.
Blurry. Sorry,
And we don't have Shulk
it's
here
my
to use
fault.
Minato Purge to help us. So, oh my goodness, Dunban went flying.
You waste of space. Not so tough without Shulk, eh? Stupid beast. You should be grateful. Not everyone has a war buddy like me to lead them along. Tasted good, didn't they? The victory drinks we used to share.
I'll kill you!
What? Who was that? Show yourself!
Melia, are you all right?
Brother!
Callian! Dixon! He works for the Bionis! He shot Shulk in the back! Is this true? Dixon? This ends here. Your Telethia are no match for our Havres squadron. You cannot win!
Maybe you should be concentrating on your own people instead of barking at me. Looks like you've forgotten your destiny. Right? Lorithia?
Lorithia! Are you involved in this as well?
Your Highness, your naivety is quite charming, but it is also your undoing. I had much fun playing with you and your father.
What? What is this light?
Ether particles emitted so that the Bionis can be destroyed and reborn. What do you get if you cross high concentrations of ether with high entia?
No! You wouldn't! Lorithia!
Awaken, my darling pets!
They are...
Telethia!
Brother!
Melia!
Lorithia! Let him go!
You misunderstand, child. This is the reason why high entia are born. Do not blame poor old me.
Explain yourself!
It's just like she says. The High Entia are a race created by Lord Zanza to eliminate any annoying life forms in the preparation for the rebirth of the Bionis. Their bodies contain a gene that, when the time comes, transforms them into Telethia.
It can't be. Say it isn't so.
Melia, it is true. That is why you are our only hope.
Brother?
Whatever. We won't be needing a half-breed like you anyway. I mean, if you don't turn into a Telethia, it just means you're gonna get crushed by one. That's the only thing you're good for. Rise up, pets. Do my bidding. Kill your lovely sister.
Brother! Just hold on! I'll find a way to save you!
Melia! So sorry. I always placed such a heavy burden on you.
Don't say such things, brother!
But at least I can still shoulder the destiny of our people. The burden meant for you
Brings a tear to my eye.
These moments are to be treasured.
How?
Melia! Father's wish and the future of the High Entia are in your hands. Yours and Shulk's.
Telethia! Destroy him! Dixon!
I got it.
Too late!
Damn him!